Hey, you guys, I'm so glad you've joined us for the first episode of the Rave Mom Podcast. My name is Colleen, and if you have gone on plurway.com and you have texted or called a Rave Mom, it's me who answered you. And so now we're just responding to all those texts and calls that we've gotten lately by doing this podcast. And so I'm so glad you've joined us.
And my name's Heidi. And if you have jumped onto our Plurway Rave Mom Instagram site, then most likely I've been the one to respond to you. So thank you for all that interaction. And we love to hear from you. And our lines have been kind of exploding with Colleen in these really since December, maybe that one?
Yeah, I think it started December 11th. There was a video we had posted that went viral, and it was just our good friend, she's more like family, Doris, that was on our video outside of she was outside of a rave venue, and she was hugging a young lady, and she just shared with her that if she needed to talk to a mom about anything, she could call a Rave Mom by going on plurway.com. And so that video just kind of took off, and we felt a little just somber and just kind of like overwhelmed a little bit about the needs that we've seen since we started taking all those calls and texts. And gosh, I know I'm speaking for both of us. We love you guys. We are so sorry that there is so much need. There's so much need for moms in your lives, and we are hoping that this is just another way to kind of help meet that need by doing this podcast. And we were just gonna start talking a little bit about our experiences that we've had when we go to raves. You don't have to be a raver or go to raves to be listening and participating.
Or to need a mom, right?
Yeah.
In fact, we have lots of kids asking that. Do I have to rave? No, we just love this generation of young people, and we want to be there for you.
Yeah. So we're probably over the next months of doing these podcasts, we're just going to look at typical common questions that were asked, and everything from serious, deep stuff to really lightweight stuff like, how do you cook a ham?
I know. We got some of that right around the holidays. It was sweet. Yeah.
Yeah. So Heidi, will you just share, for starters, what it's like when a bunch of us moms will show up outside of a rave venue, and a lot of you may have met us there and seen us. Hopefully we've hugged you, but we'll set up a sign that says free mom hugs, or you'll see us with what are those called?
Heart-shaped perlers that say free mom hugs on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
a lot of times we stand on the street as all of you are pouring in, or up by the front of the venue next to a free mom hug sign that's up high. And, it's been shocking to us over these past years that we've been doing this, just the amount, like we will stand next to our sign and they'll start to form a line of young people, of people that just are so hungry for love, affection, touch. I mean, hugs are so important. And one thing that I always love is when we hug each one of you, we do it with intention. Many times we don't let go until you want to let go. And so many, maybe a young man will come and hug us, and then all of a sudden he'll go, wow, that was a real hug. I haven't been hugged like that in years. And then he'll tell all of his friends, hey, come hug this mom. She hugs really good. And I always kind of laugh, and I'm like, I'm a professional at this point. I kind of that professional hugger. But and one thing I laughed with one of our moms is, did not know that hugging could make you sore. Like every muscle at the end of the night, I think all of us have hugged thousands of young people, and we are so sore by the time we go home, like just to raise our arms again. That was pretty shocking when we especially started going up to the front of the venue with our sign. But one thing that's really sweet is just, sometimes people just are quick and thanks, mom, and want that hug. Others will just immediately start weeping. And we just see this generation, there's so many hurt, right? We all come from hurt. We come from a background also of hurt because we're human and stuff happens.
Yeah.
But it's such a privilege that you would allow us just that opportunity to cry in our arms and to let us hug you and tell you that you're precious and you're valuable and you're worthy to be loved, because we need each other. We need people. All of us need to be reminded of that. So yeah, it's been an incredible experience, something I think we stumbled into, but it has been so meaningful for each of us that do this. And I think we get a lot of, sometimes your story pours out, which is really beautiful to us that you would give us those windows into your life. I remember one young man had come up to me. We've been doing this for years and years, so a lot of you see us over and over again, and they're like, oh, we always see you at this event. This one young man ran up to me and goes, oh, Mom, you're here. Last year, I talked to you. Do you remember me? And I was like, we had like so many. I'm like, I don't know. But he goes, well, I go, well, what was going on? And he said, I wanted to tell you, I'm so excited to find you because at that time a year ago, I hugged you and I just melted in your arms. I just was crying. And you had asked me what was wrong. And I had mentioned to you that I didn't have a relationship with my parents, that we were at odds. We were fighting all the time. At that point, we weren't talking. And you had encouraged me to be the first one to take the steps of reconciliation in my family, to not wait for my mom and dad to initiate. But you had told me how important relationship was. And no matter what we were fighting about, it really didn't matter. But family and relationship was so important. And so I didn't remember saying that, but whatever was said ministered to that kid, hit that kid right where he needed it. And he said, I went home and I want you to know that a year later, we have an amazing relationship. My mom and dad and I are talking and there's been growth and there's been healing there. So thank you so much for that. And I love it when we get a window. A lot of times we hug thousands and we don't hear
never hear back again.
Yeah, we don't hear back again. It's really awesome to hear those stories that there was impact and it made a difference. So
yeah. You know, what really struck me about that video that went viral, that our friend Doris was the mom, and she's going to be on some future podcasts too. She just couldn't get off work today to join us. But one thing that really stood out to me is that she was just sharing, like, if you don't have a mom in your life, you can text or call a Rave Mom at pluralway.com. And if you want to share your story, if you want to share some hurt or pain that's in your life, if you want to celebrate something, if you don't have a mom that will celebrate you, you can call and a mom will listen and celebrate with you. And a lot of the texts and calls that I've gotten over the last couple months have been just that. They've been, we call you guys kids. I'm really sorry. I was about to say the word kids, and I should probably say you young people or you young adults, but I'm saying kids because I'm 61. I know you're in your 50s. Yeah. So we have kids that are grown kids. And so we call you kids. I hope that's okay. But I just had a lot of kids calling, wanting to celebrate things, and hear a mom say, I'm so proud of you. And I have to say, when I get off the phone or finish a text, there's been quite a few times that I've lost it a little bit and cried, because it's so natural for you and I and the other moms that go with us to do these rave events. It's so common for us to be proud of our own kids and to celebrate stuff with our own kids. And so to hear that that's a void is kind of been shocking to me, to hear how much of a void that is. And so I just want to tell you right now, if you're joining us today and you have something that has happened that you've worked really hard for, that you've tried really hard and you've succeeded. I know there's been a lot of you that have mentioned that you've overcome some addictions, that you have broken up with someone who was toxic and you've had the courage to leave a toxic, abusive relationship. Yeah, some of you have graduated or about to graduate and you've worked really hard to get to that place. We are so proud of you.
We're proud of you.
We are so proud of you. And you can message us at Pluralway Rave Moms on Instagram and let us know those things.
Yeah, we'd love to celebrate those accomplishments with you for sure.
It would be awesome. I mentioned toxic relationships, and you're here because you probably saw that viral video, and you saw that mom, loving on that kid, and maybe there's like that emptiness in your heart about that, and maybe you don't have a mom in your life for whatever reason. But I wanted to just mention something that I've noticed that I've needed to say quite a few times when I've responded to the texts and calls that have come in, is that hurt people hurt people. And there are tons of circumstances I know for sure where there's just a wicked, evil person that happens to be your parent that has chosen to abuse you. And that's just awful and horrible. And I'm so very sorry about that. But I think there's also another kind of category of parents that have been hurt in their past. They're not healed from stuff that they've had in their lives. And so they just don't know really how to break that cycle. And there could be a whole lot of reasons that your mom feels distant from you or is kind of holding you at arm's length. And I know you had a story kind of about that.
Yeah, I mean, even from I hope I aim to be a good parent, a loving parent, right? And I at one point when all three of my kids were late teens, they were all in that kind of crazy rebellion stage of life and making choices that as a mom kind of breaks your mom heart, and you don't want them to make those choices, but that's part of their journey. But in that, I'm a hugger anyway by nature, and I really wanted to be there for my kids, and I tried to be there, and yet I felt very much of a resistance from them, a kind of a pushback. I remember one time as I'm hugging, there was a group of 3 girls. I was at an event hugging people, and all 3 of them were like, "Oh, I wish my mom would hug me. My mom never hugs me." And I just felt like I should just, for some reason, for this specific group, I said, you know what? For sometimes, like for me right now, I want to hug my kids, and I'm out here hugging you guys, but my own kids don't want me. Like I'll even say, "Hey, can I give you a hug today?" And they're like, "No, I'm good, mom." And they're just kind of distant. And I think that's part of that adulting stage of life where you do separate from your mom and dad. You want that independence. And sometimes you want that distance because maybe you're making choices that your mom is actually trying to maybe speak some truth into your life, and you maybe are pushing back, and could be part of it. But there does seem to be that part of being a mom is when you are trying to reach out to your kids, you do want relationship, and you've been rejected from your kids. They don't want you at a certain season of your life. And I think young people forget that moms have feelings too, and that it's vulnerable for us to keep putting ourselves out there and keep getting rejected by our kids. And no, mom, and just, sometimes there's a lot of tension, a lot of words and things. And so I think sometimes as parents, we also withdraw and we stop hugging, we stop approaching because maybe we've been rejected a few times and it's painful. And so I encourage these 3 girls. And I said, you know what? I bet your mom would love to hug you. I want to encourage you girls to go home, be the first to just go, "Hey, mom, can I give you a hug?" You'd probably shock her to death, And I don't know if these girls went home and did the assignment, but I hope they did, because again, we have to be the first a lot of times to make, a lot of times as young people, you expect your parents, and hopefully you have parents that are good and that are pursuing you, but sometimes we don't. And so you can also be that first person to try to make that first move. So
yeah,
but I do in this situation, these girls were sharing about they had good parents, but when it's a toxic situation, and we'll have an episode about this too, sometimes parents can be very abusive. You need to set healthy boundaries. So we will have a future of how to do that. What if you come from situations, and some of you have shared really difficult or sexually abusive or verbally or physically abusive situations. And in those situations, obviously, don't be the one to pursue. It is healthy for you to distance yourself, to put yourself in that safe space. And we'll talk about that in our episode. But
another thing I've kind of found myself saying in quite a few conversations is explaining the fact that fear and anger are brothers. And so sometimes as human beings, parents will get angry in situations where it's actually a there's fear going on.
Sure.
And so I had someone question me about, gosh, my mom seems to be angry at me all the time, and she's constantly criticizing me and trying to control me. And when I got more information, I realized, this sweet kid that's talking to me right now is scaring his mom to death because he's kind of doing some risky stuff that his mom probably did when she was that age too. And she kind of knows where that road leads, and it's scaring her, and she's not handling it well, because I don't believe anger is ever a good response for a mom to her child. I just don't. And I'm not saying I've never been angry at my kids, but I've had to ask for forgiveness of my kids.
I didn't know I had anger problems until I had kids.
Yeah.
Nobody can push those buttons quite.
That's true. But
But close to us.
a lot of that anger comes from fear. And this is an illustration I love to use to kind of explain why human beings often show their fear in anger. So I don't know if you've ever been at a store like a Target or something when a mom has discovered that she can't find her child, like her 4-year-old has wandered off. And so she runs to the customer service counter, and she's flipping out, and she's like, I can't find my 4-year-old little boy. And he was just next to the cart, and I turned and he was gone. And she's crying. She's devastated. She's pleading for help. And, the manager does what they do. I think nowadays they kind of lock the doors, right? And they make an announcement, and they send employees to go look. And the mom is just devastated, and she's sobbing, and she thinks her life is over. Yeah. But what happens when the manager comes walking back over with her little boy that they found? What's the next thing she does? She goes, don't you ever do that to me again. Yeah. And she just starts reaming him, like
Poor kid.
She's so angry. Yeah. That's a good illustration of how fear and anger are brothers. Mm-hmm. And that fears often shows up looking like anger when actually it's fear. Yeah. And so I think it is helpful for young people to realize that some things that they may be starting to do are making mom scared. Yeah. One of the sort of frequent categories of calls and texts that have come in have been surrounding the subject of depression and anxiety. And I just see almost an epidemic of that today. And I really believe that that possibly a root of that could be the lack of moms being moms and dads being dads, and really, taking that job seriously. And I just see a lot of lack of parenting. Mm-hmm. And I know that when we're out there, hugging these kids, they express that to us, right? And I just feel like we should talk a little bit about the subject of depression when you have holes in your heart that are left by a lack of fill in the blank, a lack of parenting, a lack of
community.
Community.
Feeling like you matter.
If there's, isolation, those things can result in some pretty serious depression. And I want to just say something I feel like I should really make sure I say right now. And that is that if you are experiencing some serious depression in your life, I want you to know that you can call this number 988 at any time. It's 24/7. We're moms. We're not counselors, but you can call 988 and you can talk to a counselor if things are getting really, really hard and low. And my generation was taught never to say the word suicide. Like, you don't want to mention that word because if you mention it, it'll make people want to do it, and we found that that's not true. And that the best way to deal with that is to deal with it head on. And I just really feel like I want to tell you, as a mom speaking to a kid, that you are precious, you are valuable, you were created with purpose, and there is a reason that you are here. And I heard a story about the wolves in Yellowstone in the 1920s. There was some people who thought that they knew best and decided that these predators, these wolves in Yellowstone, should be eradicated. And I'm pretty sure that it was by 1926 or something that every last wolf in Yellowstone was shot and killed. And what followed that was like a epidemic, ecological nightmare that followed that. And it was like, because the wolves were all taken out, the deer population exploded, the trees were devastated, the beavers died out. I mean, it was like,
It just
I'm not,
effect.
I'm not saying it in the right order, but because the wolves were out, it created this huge imbalance. And so much other life was affected by the wolves being taken out. And I really think that has a message for us, that we are supposed to be here. And if we're taken out before our time, there are so many people that will be affected by that. And the ripple effects would be huge. And someone someday is going to need to hear your story. They're going to need to hear that you survived and that you overcame. And I know that's why I'm here. I've had horrible things in my past. I'm a survivor of abuse and trauma, and that's the reason that I care and that I go to Raves and hug kids, and that's the reason I answer that phone line, and that's the reason that we're doing this podcast. For me, that's what got me up this morning and got me here to film this, because I have a story of survival, and I know because I survived, you can too. Absolutely. Sorry, I'm getting a little emotional because this is so important for you. I'm hoping that you really hear me. That if you're taken out before it's time for you to be taken out, the ripple effects would be huge. Absolutely. You're supposed to be here. Your story of surviving whatever you're going through is going to affect someone else someday, and then that'll affect someone else, and so on and so on. Absolutely. Till 1,000 people down the road will someday be affected because you stayed. You decided to stay, and because you told your story of how you stayed. You remember this story, right? That kid, could you tell that story about that
hard summer?
Yeah, that young man.
Yeah, we were, I think 3 or 4 of us moms were inside Hard Summer and walking around. We did have our perlers on that just said free mom hugs. And as we were walking from one stage to another, we just kind of were passing this young man. And he read our sign and immediately just stopped in front of us, and just tears just started dripping down his face. And we just go, "Oh, sweetheart, come here. You look like you need a hug." And all of us just gave him this mom sandwich hug, and he just started sobbing. And his story came out, and he said, "I was going to kill myself today. And I had the way to do it, and I was planning on hanging myself in the trees near my home. And a friend called and invited me to this event." He said, "But you know what stopped me was the thought that somebody would have to find me like that, and I could traumatize somebody. Whoever finds me, I could traumatize. Maybe it would be a kid, and I would hate to do that to someone else." And I had a family member once who was really suffering with mental illness and suicide thoughts. And one of the things that she shared with me after the fact too is one of the things that kept her here, even though she was so low and wanted at that stage to not be here anymore. But one of the things that it did is thinking through how that would impact those that you leave behind. You have impact in everybody that knows you. And even those that don't know you, that, the emergency workers and those that will come to the side and all those. And so, yeah, we hugged this boy and all he needed to hear, we prayed over him and we just told him how valuable he was, that he was here for a purpose. And he just dried his eyes and he's like, this is why I came tonight. This is what I needed. I needed to know that I mattered. And it was such a sweet, precious moment with this young man. And yeah, even if you don't have, this is a parent kind of podcast, but friendships are so important. Invite people into your life. Seek out people. Let people know what's going on. Because one of the things that's kind of neat is I read all these comments are strangers saying, I'm a mom, or I'm a dad, or hey, I'm here for you, or if you feel free to call me. And you just, if you read the threads, you got all these strangers that are saying, we know what it's like to feel low. We know what it's like to feel alone, and we want to be there for you. So, if you aren't dealing with these issues, be that one, speak into somebody's life, let them know that people that you meet, even your waitress, just the way we treat people is so important. You never know what they're going through. And you run into somebody who's grumpy or irritable and, then we want to be that way back, and just showing kindness and showing love to somebody who maybe didn't deserve it. It could be the change. It could be that moment for somebody when you just give them a hug. Hug a stranger. Like, just step out and do it. Wouldn't it be beautiful if everybody just started hugging people?
Yeah.
It'd be awesome.
Yeah.
It'd make a difference.
I remember I was in a Carl's Jr. one time. I walked in to get something and I just kind of was waiting for my order, and I looked over in the dining area and there was a lady sitting alone, and she just had tears coming down her face. And my first reaction is like, oh, she's having a private moment.
Yeah, I don't wanna
Yeah. And I was just like, no, I can't. I got to just go over there. And if she rejects me, that's okay,
Sure.
But if she doesn't reject me and she needed this, it'll be worth the risk,
Absolutely.
And I did go over to her and I put my arm around her and I said, I think that right now, God has sent me to tell you that you are precious and you are valuable and he loves you very much. And whatever's going on, I don't need to know, but I just wanted to give you a hug today. Mm-hmm. And she just gave me the biggest hug. And I just knew I'd done the right thing, by
absolutely.
her reaction. So
yeah,
we have to be okay if people don't, give us the right reaction.
No,
but
I love that you said it's worth the risk.
Yeah.
We just don't know who needs it. And I know kids later have told us, like, you being there and saying that at that moment, at that event, this, years later, even when I was at Beyond this year, this happened and that interaction really helped. I needed that at that moment. And so we never know who needs it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. We got to be noticers, don't you think?
Be aware of who's hurting, because we're all hurting
at
different times. So,
I just am excited that we get to share this podcast with you. And if you would like us to, just as moms, I want to make sure we are not counselors. We are not therapists. We will absolutely not have all the answers. We are old enough now to know that, right?
We don't know.
We do not have all the answers. We just want to be here, just doing a lot of listening and then responding in love to any questions or comments or any subjects you want us to cover or try to cover. Yeah. We'll do our best, especially for those of you who don't have moms in your life. And we might have some dads on here sometime too, because I know that can be
a huge need. Yeah, a lot of you have reached out and asked if there's dads, and there are a few dads involved with what we do. It's just so limited and hard to, they don't really have the time to respond at this point, but we're really hoping that would be something that we could have more dads being able to also answer this, because I know that's a huge need for you as well. So we're trying.
So if you have subjects that you want us to cover, just message us on Plurway Rave Moms on Instagram and just say, hey, I've been watching your podcast. I would like to have you answer this question, and we will do our best. And if you could like us, follow us, subscribe, whatever.
Share with your friends.
Yeah, that would be great. And we hope to have lots more of these episodes where we just come as the Rave Moms to just share lots of love with you, and consider yourself hugged right now. A big, huge, what do they call that?
Air hug?
Air hug, virtual hug right now.
Absolutely.
We wish you could be here with us and we could hug you in person, but we can't. So I hope that you feel hugged and loved right now. Thanks for watching today. If you have questions or you'd like to talk to a mom, go to plurway.com and click on text or call a Rave Mom. We'd love to hear from you.